Helene, it's always great to check in with you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
United had that remark about Newark operations. They cut some flights to Shanghai on China's COVID restrictions. Is there any reason to think that the quarter or the guidance for the sector is at risk?
Yes. Yeah. I think that we're coming out of 2021 fairly strong, except for all those flight cancellations we had at the end of the year. It was something like 18 or 20,000. I think I even saw an estimate as high as 24,000 due to a combination of weather and staffing shortages. And then we're heading into January where we have more winter weather and more staffing shortages. So I suspect that the airlines will be very cautious when they report earnings. United is reporting next week, as is American. Delta's tomorrow, as you know. And I think it'll be the typical March will make the quarter, but January is going to be, I think, is going to be a tough month. I think really the first 6 weeks of the year are going to be tough, and we don't have business traffic coming back. I mean, we don't see it coming back at all to pre-pandemic levels.
No,
so
we've talked about that for a while. Although, I mean, the market loves to look ahead, and if you are working with the assumption that case declines are going to be coming our way in the coming weeks, what does March look like? What does April and June look like? Will shares reflect that? Optimism, perhaps?
Yeah, and you're kind of seeing that, Carl. You're seeing that demand is going to be strong. I think like mid-February, that's what we're thinking. Around President's Day weekend, when you start to get into spring break, that's usually a pretty strong period of time. And then I think we head into Easter and Passover holidays, so you see pretty good strength, especially on the U.S. East Coast, north-south, between Boston, New York, and Florida. And then we're still thinking, I'm not ready to give up on the idea that we're going to have a very strong North Atlantic this summer, that you'll have demand from 2020, 21, and this year. And I think countries realize they have to think about the tourist dollar and opening their borders again. And I think we'll see pretty good strength in those markets. And, we'll start to see that with forward bookings in the end of April, beginning of May. That's really when people start to book. And you may recall, I'm sorry, Morgan, were you going to say something?
No, I have another question for you. So finish your thought, and then we're going to jump into air freight.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you may recall last year, the end of April, beginning of May, Greece announced they were open for business, and many Americans and Europeans went to Greece last summer. And I think the same thing will happen this summer with other countries. They saw how successful they were in attracting the tourist dollar. And so, like I said, we're not ready to give up.
Yeah, I got to think more and more people getting COVID. I mean, I know this is happening with my family. We're starting to plan a family vacation now, because that risk is out of the way, at least for the nearer term. But I do want to shift to air freight, because we have seen all these cancellations. We do know so many of these passenger aircraft do carry cargo in the belly of the planes. So on a day where we're getting the hottest inflation reading in 40 years, Helene, how does this speak to the ongoing issues around transportation and freight and supply chain? And is this a situation that could continue to last longer than was previously expected?
Yeah, I suspect it will, Morgan. I think we're going to see these supply chain issues last to at least the end of the year and probably well into 2023. Because to your point, and I think Carl mentioned at the top of this hit that China was turning away passenger aircraft. The U.S. airlines have been complaining about that. China shuts down when people get COVID, so they shut their airports. They're getting ready for the Olympics, so there's been a lot of reduction in capacity. I think pre-pandemic, the U.S. airlines had over 100 flights a week between the U.S. and China, and we're down to less than 10. So think about all that capacity. And then to your earlier point about passenger demand being down, you mentioned earlier United cutting capacity this month. JetBlue is cutting capacity. They're not big in international cargo cargo, of course. But to your point that we are definitely going to see very strong demand for FedEx, for UPS, for DHL, I think straight through 2020 into 2023.